Hi, my name's Captain Wayne Johnston. I served 41 years in the Canadian Army. I retired in April 2014, and I suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder due to being the repatriation officer to the fallen from the Afghanistan mission. Back in October 2006, I set up Wounded Warriors Canada. I founded it, and in 2013, towards the end of the year, I was in a very dark spot, drinking far too much, and the charity and I mutually agreed to disagree on a number of things, and it doesn't matter. I was on Facebook some time ago, and I saw the good work that VIA Veterans in Action is doing, and about 7-8 weeks ago I contacted Billy McLeod. I saw they were doing an expedition, and I thought it would be really good for me. It has been outstanding. I have grown so much from this in so many ways. I used to live the life of Dracula. I would be up all night, and I'd probably sleep till 11, 12 in the afternoon, and my wife would have 25 tasks done by the time I got up. This expedition has taught me, I'm one of the first guys up all the time now, and I really plan to make this my routine when I get back. That's just one way it's helped me. I came into this as kind of the odd man out, commissioned officer. I commissioned from the ranks as a sergeant major. I've been an officer a long time. I worked staff work a long time, and outdoor camping, frankly, isn't my thing, but I've learned to really embrace it. In the beginning, I found it really hard to get up in the morning, but frankly, you got to be part of the team, and you got to force yourself to get up, and I think I've managed to do that. There's been some challenges, particularly when you get so many guys with post-traumatic stress disorder and so many type A personalities in at one point 4 vehicles. I have learned just when the stress happens to be the Cheshire Cat, grin and remain happy, knowing that at the end of the day I'm going to be around a campfire with some great guys. Insofar as the day-to-day driving, some may think it's boring. I frankly find it incredibly eye-opening, seeing the countryside. We've been to so many countries. I think it's at this stage 15 countries if we include Macedonia. Just to see the sights. I like to keep my eyes open. I don't like to sleep in the vehicle, and I find it really exciting to take it all in. Post-traumatic stress it's really difficult to describe. Suffice to say, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. Making decisions. I used to be a pretty accomplished speaker. I stutter now. I'm not stuttering right now because I'm focused. I'm really focused. But simple decisions from my wife, like, what do you want for dinner? Just make that decision for me. Whereas I used to be able to do that. Sometimes when I get really stressed out, I'll walk around in circles. That hasn't happened once to me on this expedition. I have found, frankly, being outdoors liberating from post-traumatic stress. As strange as that may sound, I have found it really liberating. Well, I lost my phone in a slight accident we're going to talk about later, and then my internet kind of went down, and I used to live on the phone. I don't live on the phone anymore. I'm with these fellas who, some of them live on the phone, but there you go. And I find the liberating part is just being out in the world, seeing some things that people would be privileged. I'm privileged to be here. And I would say to anybody that's thinking of going on this is a privilege, and it's not easy. It's hard work. It's hard work that you get out of it what you put into it. The accident, I rolled a vehicle. It rolled 7 times down a hill in Bosnia. And my last thoughts were those of my wife, and it's made me love her a lot more. I love her to bits, but I sure miss her, and I'm looking forward to seeing her. But I think then I realized, wow, she's my best friend. It's also given me a routine. It's allowed me to, setting up camp and things like that. It isn't stuff I normally would do. I'm pretty much an indoor pussycat. Well, we were proceeding on a southerly direction down Bosnia on one of those one man's goat trail as another man's freeway. And I perhaps was following too close. There was a lot of dust. I'd like to think the road gave way. I was probably too close to the edge. The vehicle rolled. There was three of us in it 7 times. It was near death. My feelings after, terribly responsible, not just for the vehicle. I could have killed 2 great fellows, and I cried a lot, let out a lot of emotion, perhaps I haven't let out in a long time. That said, this team of guys came together like nobody else. They really, really pulled together, managed the accident like nobody's business, and in the end, nobody was hurt, and maybe the good Lord was looking down on us. I called my wife pretty much immediately after the accident. The charity was excellent facilitating the phone call because my phone went south. I don't know, some Bosnian has it as we speak. She told me, "You're not going home," and that stiffened some courage up into me. And I think the charity gave me an opportunity and trust to drive again, and that meant a lot to me. I was driving a little slow. I think anybody can understand if you roll a vehicle 7 times, it's incredibly frightening. And I've overcome that, I think, through the bond of these fellows that nobody held me responsible. Nobody has, and the British Army loves the banter. Nobody's given me banter on that. I'm not gonna lie, I still feel terribly responsible, but these guys are carrying me through, and when I get home, I'll think of these guys as some of my best friends. For me to move on from this accident, and I'm already doing that, I think what I have to do and what I owe the charity is not to go back to my same old routine, and that's going to take some discipline on my part. It'll be easy for me to get home and go to sleep. I'm not going to do that. I've got to dig deep and start getting a routine back into my life the way it used to be. Insofar as driving, I'm pretty good driving now. I'm not fussed one way or the other, but yeah, I think it's just going to take a lot of discipline on my part and hard work. Nobody said mental health was easy. Mental illness is not easy. It's hard work, and every day is a challenge. But I would say to people who suffer from it, work hard at it, and I would say to people who don't suffer from it, instead of putting somebody down, give them a hand up, not a push down. To move forward, as I said, it's going to take a lot of work on my part, and I've got a great wife who's my best friend who'll support me. I think the thing her and I need to do is I've got to start joining her. My wife likes to walk 4 or 5 miles a day. I've got to start joining her on those, get a little bit fit. I come from a country where it's darn cold in the winter, but in the spring and summer, I think I'm going to start taking up camping. I'm really enjoying this. I thought it would be a real challenge. The first few days were a little challenged, but it hasn't been so bad. I'm managing pretty good, and I think I might take up some camping. And my wife and I have talked about getting a boat and getting out into the outdoors again, because I find, as I said, the outdoors can be quite liberating. I've seen some incredible sights. what I'd like to do moving forward is I'm very much involved with an organization called the Wounded Warriors Weekend. And I already extended an invite to Veterans in Action to bring 6 guys to Newfoundland in August, and hopefully we can form some bonds there. Because at the end of this day, this injury doesn't have any borders. I always used to say soldiers with post-traumatic stress disorder don't dream in maple leaves, nor do they dream in stars, nor do they dream in Union Jacks. They have terrible dreams, and the injury is the same. And I think it's important, really important. We fought together. I think it's really important to get us together and heal together. What's frustrating for me, and I work in casualty management in the Canadian Forces for a long time, what's frustrating for me is the countries don't work together often, or they do, and you know, they'll do another study based on the American study or the British study. Charities certainly don't work together, and at the end of the day, what's it really all about? It's about the individual soldier, as well as, more importantly than the individual soldier sometimes, is the individual soldiers whose family, soldier, sailor, or airman, whose family is suffering, and suffering badly. We have couples getting divorced who still love one another, and I think we as a society, be it British, Canadian, American, whatever, we sent them to war. We've got to mend them. I think what we need to do, particularly, you know, there's so many charities out there right across the board, American, British, Australian, Canadian. They need to start working together, and I'd like to see nothing better than to see a VIA expedition with some Canadians, Americans, Australians. I think it would, from there you can build on understanding. Each government treats veterans differently, some better than others, but we can certainly start. It's going to take a long time to get there, but build on the successes. And this has been, to my mind, a great success. As I mentioned, this isn't easy. There's been some stress, there's been some conflicts. As I say, you get a whole bunch of guys together with post-traumatic stress disorder, there will be conflicts. I personally don't like the confrontation, whereas I find the British just get it out. I prefer to de-escalate, and I'm not sure what's the right answer. I was really upset one day because there was an argument. Maybe I just beat myself up. I didn't do anything wrong or anything. I was upset because guys were mad at one another, and to my mind, I like to think that, and I hate to sound cliche, but after 4 or 5 weeks, we'd be a band of brothers. But I guess brothers do fight. I have my way of dealing with conflicts. I like to de-escalate and talk about it. Others like to go what I call pokey jest and have sucking chest wounds. And I think it's perhaps cultural. The British Army, despite, you know, I can only talk about my army, the Canadian Army. My army probably does things a lot different than the British Army, though we emulate the British Army in many ways because of our traditions and heritage. But I think at the end of the day, we probably operate a little bit differently. And I'm not saying one's right or one's wrong. Naturally, I think the Canadian way is the way. But I come from a country that says, excuse me, an awful lot. So, you know, kind of understand that. The expedition didn't start out with a gentleman, start your engines, and we did 500 laps around the Indianapolis Speedway. We had a few problems with the Land Rovers, but what amazed me, and again, maybe, you know, I've never, we call them EME techs, vehicle techs. I have never seen mechanics, vehicle techs, be so ingenious. And in the field, they changed an engine in the field. They changed a gearbox in the field, and they did it. Flash to bang, and not a whole lot of time. The experience, the sights, the interchanges with people from various nations. We've been to, as I say, 15 countries. I'm a First World War, Second World War guy. I love Jeeps. I could do the Menin Gate every day of my life and still enjoy it. I love that. Some things that I didn't like, I look at a country like Italy and Greece, and they have so much culture and heritage, yet you see so much garbage, literally garbage strewn all over the streets, graffiti here, there, and everywhere, and it's filthy, and I don't like that. They're better than that, and I don't know why they do it, but they do it. Insofar as other countries, when we had the vehicle accident, the Bosnian people in this little village, Bosniaks, could not have been more hospitable. They opened their homes, they opened their food, they opened everything to us. And that helped me, frankly, get over. I got over it relatively quickly. That helped me a lot. When the vehicle rolled and went down, obviously there wasn't enough seats, and we as a group made some decisions, and 3 of the guys went forward to outside Athens, a campsite, and the rest stayed, and unfortunately 2 of the other fellas left as we got back to Greece, and I was terribly disappointed in that. Good guys that perhaps weren't ready for this, or again, I'm privileged to be here, and I can't understand why you wouldn't want to do this. And I know 6 weeks is an awfully long time, but 6 weeks of growing and learning. And yeah, it was disappointing. That was terribly disappointing to me. But we made it was disappointing. Obviously, I rolled the vehicle, but we as a group made a decision, and I thought it was the right decision. And Billy could have sent me home, could have did a lot of things, but he had confidence in me and kept me here. We went to Albania and Montenegro, and I was, Albania, as far as I was concerned, was the hermit nation of Europe. And they're really coming along. It's quite pleasant there. The people are very nice. We stopped off, had a nice meal there. Montenegro, they've got a coast that would rival many, many coasts along the Adriatic. Just really nice people. Some of the roads, as I say, one man's freeway is another man's goat track, but some of the roads were challenging. Some of the other drivers were challenging. But at the end of the day, we're in their country, so maybe we should adopt their customs. I was very fortunate to get back to Mostar. I was, in 2003, I was the liaison officer for the British Canadian Brigade to a German, French, Italian, Spanish brigade, where I learned a lot about culture and little snippets of language. But it was really good to get back to the Mostar Bridge. It was that's something I'd wanted to do for a long time. Went to Monte Cassino. Surprising for me as a Canadian. I obviously gyrated towards the Canadian graves and paid my respects. Paid my respects, frankly, to all of them. Salerno, there was a small number of Canadians, but again, paid my respects. I'm hoping, as we head towards Normandy, I've never been to Juno Beach, and I'd very much like to go to the Juno Beach Center. But at the same time, see the other, go to Pointe du Hoc, where the U.S. Rangers were, go to the other beaches. I'm a bit of a guy who likes to walk in the steps of our forefathers, and I like doing that. I've primarily, over the years, dedicated myself to seeing British, Commonwealth, Canadian, Australian sites, mostly up in Picardy and in the Flanders. But on this trip, we went to Verdun along with that American-French line, saw some beautiful cemeteries, and I've learned a few things, and this is just my own opinion on cemeteries. The German cemeteries are sadly very stark and unkept. Not unkept, but they're not beautiful. Commonwealth cemeteries are beautiful. American cemeteries are beautiful. French cemeteries are reasonably well kept. I think one of the differences is the French look at the First World War, as we all do, very somberly, but I think that reflects in their cemeteries, where in the Commonwealth, to our glorious dead. And part of me says, Do we glorify war? Doing the job I did as a repatriation officer, bringing back the fallen, I become a bit of a pacifist. There is no glory in war. There is nothing good about war. It only destroys men and women, destroys families. Not you know. And I say this, I'll say this again. We cherish the fallen. We as a nation, Canada, Britain, all the nations, we cherish the fallen. Should we not cherish the injured? And amongst those injured, should we not cherish those with mental health issues, those that have had their souls torn from them rather than their flesh? And we need to cherish them as well, souls and flesh. One of the things going to these cemeteries that struck me was the ages. They're all young men, be they German, French, American, Australian, Kiwis, Canadian, British. The one thing that runs in common, by and large, they're all young men. I think we need to remember that as nations, that war strips away our youth, and it's not a good thing. I said I'm a pacifist. What I found interesting at one of the Commonwealth graves we went to, the first soldier that was killed was a soldier of the Middlesex Regiment, the first Commonwealth soldier. And interesting enough, many people may or may not know this, the last soldier of the war was a Canadian. And they died within yards of one another, and they're buried within yards of one another, which is rather ironic and perhaps poetic. To those that were behind the scenes, that you know, here we are on this great expedition, and you know, lots of pictures taken, and I'm sure there'll be some media, but to the many who built the vehicles, who installed tires, who welded, who installed engines, and to the donors, especially the donors, know this in your hearts, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart. First and foremost, thank you. You've helped heal my soul and help my family, but I know this, I say this with certainty, you've helped other families and you've helped heal other souls, and the only way that Veterans in Action can continue on with this is, I hate to say this, no Buck Rogers. It takes money to do this. And you want to feel good about yourself? Donate some money to Veterans in Action, because they're a charity, and I've got a lot of experience with charities. They're pretty grassroots, and they literally put rubber to the road.